This is Peaceful Education, the Blue Mountain Schoolway, Part 5.
Gently open your eyes. Relax your shoulders and go back to the same position you were in before, or stay here. And just notice right now how you're feeling. Just notice, non-judgmentally. Maybe you're feeling the same as you did before. Maybe you feel, well, just name it in your head, that one word. And we'll just call out if you're, whatever that feeling is. And I'll start. I'm still a little nervous by leading this activity, so that's what I'm feeling, a little nervous. A little refreshed.
I'm fairly neutral, I'm sorry.
There's no judgment, it's all, whatever it is great.
No apology for it. Chilly, so I put on I noticed how I was feeling atmospherically.
Squirrely, and I'll explain that in a little bit, but I want to hear like a little uncomfortable.
I feel kind of grounded, I guess.
I feel calm.
Yeah, like light and calm. I'm really chill right now.
Stressed.
Calm.
What were the sounds that you heard? You can just name them out.
Sneakers.
Talking.
The doors I heard
When
this
they were
weekend.
walking, I just
Door
noticed
slamming.
Elevator dinging.
air.
Yeah.
The air.
Yeah. I was trying to decide if that was traffic or a fan.
Yes. Talking.
So this is an activity, just a simple one that we would do, and you know, there's a lot going on here. There's focusing techniques, there's concentrating, there's calming by focusing on our breath, and then there's sharing, there's deep listening, and there's also being vulnerable by sharing. So a lot going on is just a period of like 3 minutes.
And I want to kind of talk about the what you said and what I said about feeling squirrely, and you said you sort of felt uncomfortable. I feel squirrely because the whole time I'm just like, you know, I cannot calm myself down, you know, and I've recognized, and it's taken me a long time to recognize this, that maybe that's not a good thing, that I can't ever calm myself down, that I can't just stop and think. I've got too much going on, and so to stop and do that, the whole time I'm like, well, what time is it? Do I have another slide that I need to, you know, it's just like, that's part of what made me uncomfortable, is that it was so unfamiliar. Because my own schooling didn't include anything like this. And I kind of feel like, would I be a different person now? Would I be a better person now if I had that ability to stop and pause and savor the moment and become chill, you know? Because I'm anything but when we, you know, even at, like, we start meetings with a moment of silence, and the whole time I'm like, you know? And I shouldn't be that way, but it's like that's part of my training from school. So I like to think, what is the training doing for these kids who are getting a very different experience, that it might help them later in life with being able to not, you know, how many of you feel stressed? You just said, I mean, that was the word that you used. Stress because of the studies, stress of affording, coming to college, you know, all of the other stresses of relationships, and if you have a job or something like that. And we lose the opportunity then to be able to step back. And I think that speaks to like what you were saying, Jane, about, you know, we say we're stressed out because that's what it means to live in this world today. But Jane is giving the example of, we don't have to necessarily buy into that world. And I think that that's one of the hopeful things about this school, is that it shows kids that there is a different way of being in this American society that's so highly consumeristic, so highly materialistic, so highly focused on being busy and successful, defined by monetary, you know, success. And it's just refreshing to me for kids to be able to see it doesn't have to be that way, that there is this alternative out there, and I can make a choice as to what sort of life I want to lead because I've had practice with making choices on things.
And a lot of the kids see their parents have made that choice.
Right,
you know.
right.
I mean,
So they've got the models
ideally
at
for
home.
my career, I should be in Manhattan.
Oh.
Now that said, I'm still doing all right.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've made a choice that I don't want to be in Manhattan.
Right. You don't want to be in that
Yeah.
rat race. And you're successful and you're happy.
Yeah.
And
like.
I could be more successful and have a lot more money if
Yeah.
I was in that place making those deals. And I was just like, how much is enough?
Right,
I think we got it.
Right. So questions, comments, reactions to this school?
I think I wish I could have gone there.
I think that way too. It's a very small school. There's only, 50 students this year? Yeah.
Somewhere
So
between
there's,
48
it's,
and 51. Yeah.
I often kind of am asked the question, do you think you're making an impact on the world with only 50 students? And I would say yes, I think we are. I mean, because I think that these kids are going to come out of it and maybe they're going to have their own ripples. So this is like one ripple in the pond that can maybe spread out. You have a question? Comment?
With your extracurricular house, like super, super small, how do you think that would still be as, like, would you still be able to do as many, like, one person, like yourself, activities if you had twice as many and 3 times
We
as
would
many
have more
students?
teachers if we did that
I think
because
we
it's
could do it.
class size.
Yeah. I would love to see it, I hope it happens.
Yeah. We actually have a commitment to not have classes over 15. So even if we get more kids,
And you hire
we're
more teachers,
we're hiring more
that's-
teachers and we have to build more buildings.
Yeah.
Because we're sort of popping at the seams right now. We had to buy a trailer last year to.
Where's, you said it was in Floyd?
Yeah. So Floyd County is like if you go.
Land.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
yeah. So just Floyd County's the next county over from Montgomery.
Jump on Route 8 and
Yeah. It's from here. It's probably about a 30-minute drive to the school.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I know we play Floyd in like our basketball game. Land's only like 45 minutes to an hour
Uh-huh.
from here, so I figured.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not too far, but it is definitely country. You had a question.
Do you think the low enrollment is just because of the low population in Floyd County?
I do, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think, I think some of us would love us to be bigger, but I think that there's a tipping point too, that like if you get too big, then you lose some of what we're able to do. Even if you do have more classes, it's still, as the community gets bigger, that element of being known perhaps gets limited. But I still think we've got plenty of space to grow still in terms of numbers. I could
if the
envision.
school were in Blacksburg or in Christiansburg, it would be much larger than it is now. There's just more people.
Right.
Would you guys like to expand to other counties instead of just in Floyd, or is that possible at all?
We haven't really thought of
I don't think that's
franchising
even
kind of-
possible. I
Yeah.
think that, like Jane was talking about the grassroots beginning, I think that all, these independent schools sort of have to have their own beginning. There are schools, like there's the Blacksburg New School that's in Blacksburg. In Virginia, in Roanoke, there's the community school. These are all examples of like pre-K through 8th grade schools. And community school even has a high school now.
Part of the issue we deal with is that if you live in certain places in Floyd, you're actually closer to the community school than us. You're actually closer to the new school than you are to us in the very center of the county. So it's not even just our county is a big. It's such a big county, and we don't really actually have everyone who's in the county as an option.
Right, because of how, when I would go to when we were in 2009, when we were talking about this sort of really firming up this contemplative progressive vision, I remember going on drives to get to people's houses and being like, where the heck? I'm like,
Oh, I
this is the
remember
most
that.
godforsaken place.
Would it be great if there were more schools like ours? I think it would be great. But there is a big mindfulness movement that's, well, I wouldn't say big, but they're bringing it into public schools, just more of that, like the simple activities that I shared with you, which I think is really benefiting kids. It's just slowing down, focusing on our breath and our bodies, before tests, kind of calming the nervousness of things. I think it's really good, and I'd love to see more of it, those kind of activities.
We did the breathing thing when I was in preschool. Not when I was in preschool, when I was in kindergarten. We had classes with plants that we were supposed to give carbon dioxide to. So we had to do.
Oh, what a great idea.
That's cool.
Kristen, there was a part of our school that I think is important to mention, and that's our director and our staff, and the way that our staff meetings are run, and how we are as a staff that enables the school to be what it is. Because we sit together mindfully. There are mindful times during our meetings, and we also will gather. Some of us will come a half hour before we have to be there to sit in a circle and meditate. And so when you have a community of teachers, and so when you think about growing, that's something that would change, because there are, I don't know, 8, 10 of us didn't feel valued, and I was not happy. I make twice as much money as a public school teacher as I make now, and my life is richer. And so it's again back to that money, how much is enough, and what is happiness, and what does that mean? Is it really money? Not so much, it's how you spend your time. And we come together, we sit, we support each other when we're in need, you know.
It's not easy teaching kids. It just isn't. I mean, it's not. It's hard.
And so when you feel so supported, I actually don't feel like I'm going to work. It's pretty amazing. I don't even think about it. It's like, okay, I'm going to see my boys. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, so.
I definitely don't. I teach yoga and PE. I'm like, woo, let's play.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
So there's something about having a clear intention, which started with Jane and her friends, and keeping clear with this intention and that social connection and being seen and staying together as a group of adults. The kids know that we have that connection. So there's no like, I'm going to try and get away with this, or, you know, that I don't think they even think that way.
It's not pitting mom against dad.
It's just like, this is how we are. We are together. We exist together.
We listen to each other.
Yeah.
You know, especially when those conflicts come up. That you know, we're having an issue with the kid, and it's like, wow, I'm just not. Why is this kid acting this way? I'm not able to get through to her, and then you know, we'll be reflective of each other, and really they'll help each other to like figure out the problem, which is unusual in a school, and it's so helpful because I don't always have the answers.
And you're role modeling not only what it is to be a whole person, but also to be a member of a community. I mean, they're seeing that,
Yes.
which that's to me very healthy, which I don't think that we have enough of in this day and age in this society. Other thoughts, questions that people have? Yes?
You said it's Monday through Thursday. Do you follow more of like a year-round school schedule?
No, that's a great question. No, it's we're off before as of Memorial Day
And we
in
have
May.
more breaks during the year than
Yeah,
public
and
school
then
would, too.
don't start until after Labor Day, like the day or so after
So it's
Labor
more
Day.
like a college-based schedule.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
as Warren just said, there's
used to be.
a winter break, whereas, you know, there's a winter break and a spring break. So you have a fall, you know, so there is, again, it's that sort of balance, that really recognition that we're not meant to have children, you know.
And it's from like 9 to 2 then, or like 9 to
9 to 3, yeah.
We started at 9 too, which is unusual.
Yeah, right, because most schools start at 8 or 8:30 or something like that. And like what Jane was saying earlier about her daughter in 8th grade, about, you know, she was able to jump into 9th grade after having spent a year reading romance novels and some other things. You know, if you look at the research that's done about, you know, people track what happens during the school day in a K-12 school, you know, so much of the time is taken up with attendance and just a lot of the administrative stuff, you know, lining up for lunch and doing this, that, and the other thing. That, yeah, that the time that you have a shorter day. Well, no, when you really compare it minute to a high school, they're getting as much instructional time as the kids in the public school. We just don't have to have all that administrative stuff on top of it.
Our school doesn't test, so this year we took my daughter to test just because we wanted to make sure. I mean, this was before she
You
did
took her
a
to
day of,
like Sylvan,
so
yeah.
before she did a day in 5th grade, she was reading at a 10th grade, 3rd month level. So I'm not worried about them not being there 5 days a week.
Right, right. Other questions or thoughts? Well, I hope that this was interesting for you all. I mean, it was great. I learned a lot from, you know, I know a lot of it, but it was great to hear the history in particular. And so if you have any interest at all in ever coming and visiting the school or doing any sort of internship, I mean, again, how many of you have declared majors? You're a senior.